This is something you don't get to see very often. There's two different treatments separated by a fence, and unfortunately we do have a tree down on the fence, but it's not that big a deal. On that side you see a bunch of mid-story stuff: hop hornbeam, American elm, hornbeam, sweet gum, mostly American elm and hop hornbeam and hornbeam. And over here it looks different. Bigger trees with a lot of stuff on the ground. It's good for critters and deer and such to eat. And we will touch on what that is at a later date. Well, well, well. It's a gorgeous fall day out here. It would have been a fine morning to have been killing something had the firearms deer season been open here in Mississippi. But that's neither here nor there. We're gonna get after them soon enough. That's for sure. We're gonna get after them. I wanted to talk today a little bit about habitat and something that a landowner of any size can do to make things better. And this is to get more light on the ground in your wooded habitat. This is to get more herbaceous plants, vines, forbs in the understory for birds to, ground nesting birds to nest in, for turkeys to bug in, to forage in, and deer to browse on. And I wanted to explain a concept that most people overlook, especially small landowners, but it's something that's very useful in mixed hardwood stands, mixed pine or straight hardwood stands. It's a method called the hack and squirt or hack and spray method. Now, most forests typically are shaded out, kind of like this stand that I'm standing in here that we're going to use for this little demonstration. Not much of any forage, any foliage, any herbaceous plants on the ground. And the ones that deer prefer to eat are even fewer and further between. And I wanted to discuss a method to modify those stands to make them a little bit better, to try to get more of that stuff that critters like to use on the ground for them to forage on and live in. Most forests in the southeast, pretty much every forest in the southeast, consist of a canopy made of dominant and codominant trees. And those are primarily oak, hickory, some yellow poplar, and pine. In most of the deep south, that's the case. And those trees have a tendency to not be shade tolerant. They need diffuse light to grow and develop into that dominant tree that gets most of the light in the canopy. Underneath that tree are shade tolerant species like American elm, sweet gum. There's some yellow poplar in there. There's some hop hornbeam. Most of these trees do not produce mast. Beech would also be a dominant species that lives primarily in the canopy. It does regenerate. It takes an incredibly long time to regenerate and to grow into a dominant tree. But beech is useful. Hickory is also useful. But on my property, what I try to do is I try to remove about half of the hickory because it's got these huge leaves and they hog a lot of light. So I leave about half of the young hickory trees that I encounter, and I inject the rest of them, and that frees up some light to hit the ground. But the shade tolerant species that are underneath the canopy in the mid-story take up a significant chunk of light. And if you can move it to where the stand has a canopy, no mid-story, and ground cover, you're going to have a forest that is suitable for turkeys and suitable for deer, because you've got enough cover on the ground that both species can use it, but it's not so overgrown that it's a boom or a bust type situation, because the cutover is incredibly good for deer, but you've got about 5 to 10 years of really good habitat and really good forage production, and then that is over and it shades out and it's done for about 20 years. A thin stand or an injected stand, which some of us call it timber stand improvement, is going to be suitable for an extended time period, and it's going to produce good habitat and good ground cover for a much longer period of time, and it's more sustainable. So what I wanted to show you is how we're going to inject these trees and what trees to think about injecting in order to try to make this happen. The tools of the trade are as follows. I'm going to show you these. I've got an oak ant on this squirt bottle. This is a squirt bottle from Lowe's. I've got a 25% mix of arsenal and water, imazapyr and water. You can use a regular machete or a regular hatchet, something like this. What I prefer is the old woodsman pale axe. It's a good tool. You can keep it fairly sharp. It's fairly ergonomic. The handle's tolerable, and it's got the little lanyard there where you hang it around your wrist and you just ease around through the woods and you make things happen. How this is applied is you get one hack and one squirt of arsenal, 25%, for 3 inches of diameter. Typically we're targeting trees 12 inches or less in diameter. My gauge, old forester taught me this, that's about 9 inches. So you can gauge 3, 6, or 9, and or 12 by that. Pinky to end of thumb. Another thing is you want to squirt 1 milliliter of arsenal solution per 3 inches of diameter. Now, you can, on your squirt bottle, take a cork and glue it right here, and then take a little test tube or graduated cylinder and measure out until it, shave it off until it's squirting exactly 1 milliliter. Or, in old biologist fashion, we like to spice things up a little bit, and I just give it a good squirt, good spray, and then typically the trees that I inject, they just die. They don't try to put out the next year. They're just deader than a hammer. So I'm gonna flip this thing around here in a minute, and I'm gonna show you this method and demonstrate killing one tree. We are in the wrong time of year for such as this. It's not exactly the wrong time, but we're a little late. This is ideally done in September and October when the sap is getting ready to flow down the tree to the roots. We're in the first couple of days of November. So you're gonna have limited, slower response from the chemicals being taken up by the tree. But for this demonstration, it'll work. So with that, I'm going to flip this thing around. We're gonna find us a sweet gum to kill, and we're gonna make it happen. And what we have here is a small, about a 6-inch DBH diameter at breast height sweet gum. Right next to a big old pretty Shumard oak. And obviously, this sweet gum is no real threat to this Shumard oak, okay? But what it is doing, it is hogging a little bit of light right through there. It could be used by herbaceous plants on the ground. And this is on the part of the place here that has livestock on it. So it's not real vital to have the best deer habitat on the planet in here. But I did want to use this tree to demonstrate how to make them dead. 3 inches of diameter at breast height. About 4.5 feet where a DBH is. So the first thing we're going to do, and this is going to be more than a milliliter because I like to make it work pretty quick. Is we're going to take this thing and we're going to lay that dude open right there. We're going to give it a good squirt. We're going to lay it open right there. We're going to give it another. Measure it. It's about 6 inches. Not quite 9. 2 hacks and 2 squirts ought to get it. Next summer, this tree might put out a little bit up top. Try to put out a few leaves. The next year it will be dead. May even be dead next spring with that much arsenal going into it. So if you do that on 30, 40, 20, 50, 60 acres, move through and inject most of the non-mass producing trees in the mid-story. Mass producers are tree species that drop a food source. Pecans, oaks, hickories, beech, persimmons, soft-mast or persimmons, that sort of thing. The American elms, sweet gums, yellow poplars, green ash, hop hornbeam, all of that stuff is a prime candidate for 2 hacks, 3 hacks, and squirt arsenal. Imazapyr is the active chemical. And with that, y'all go out there and inject your timber stand.